Hello, welcome back to day 9 of the Visibility Project. Today I want to talk about denial, and I want to talk a little bit about my relationship to denial and also what is helpful about it, how to work with it, how to move through it. I had a long period of going back and forth with acceptance and denial around what happened to me. I felt like I spent time in both places, almost like a pendulum of coming to this place of knowing something was true and then swinging back to a place of not being able to accept it and feeling like I was back in denial. And when I look back in that period, I would say it was solidly 7 years where I was conscious of the truth, right? It broke through in this way where I was more consciously dealing with it. Before that time, I was repeating, I was replaying, I was engaging with it, but in a bit of a different way. And there was a 7-year period before I got to a place of acceptance with my mind, body, heart, spirit, that I went back and forth. And I had a lot of frustration about that at the time, of feeling like, why can't I just accept this? Why can't I figure it out? Let's move through this. I can't deal with it until I accept it. And at the end of all of that, once I held the whole truth of it in my hand, in my spirit, I was so thankful that I didn't feel that, and that my brain and body didn't allow me to fully take that in any sooner, because it was a lot. And with acceptance comes pain and grief and heaviness, and I got it bit by bit, and I was able to chip away at it. And yet also, when I accepted it fully, oh my gosh, it was painful. It was super fucking painful, but I wasn't suicidal. It didn't tip me over an edge. And it absolutely would have earlier. And I thank my brain and body for that. I have a lot of gratitude for that process that at the time I did not feel. When I went through my MDMA assisted psychotherapy, the framework of the therapy in that process was internal family systems. And internal family systems is very awesome and interesting, and it examines different parts of you and how those different parts work together and how they are formed and what they do to protect you in different ways. And I really grew more compassionate for different parts of myself at that time. But the study therapist asked me about denial, and just asked, like, when that part of you was driving, you were just in that space, what did that do for you? And I was able to actually articulate that I was able to live my life. I was able to complete a doctorate. I was able to accomplish the things that I accomplished and maintain some semblance of normalcy. And it was the first time that I actually was able to see and feel this compassion for the fact that if I had just been in a place of constantly trying to accept and work through the trauma, I wouldn't have been able to do the other things that I did at that time, because I needed to put it aside, and I needed to be like, no, this actually isn't true. To function, to survive, to get through. One thing that I have noticed in the aftermath of the swinging back and forth with denial and acceptance was that anytime I spent time either back in my childhood home or around my father, I sunk back into denial. It's like I would do these big pieces of work and I would be getting to a place of acceptance, and then I would have to go spend Thanksgiving, not have to, I would choose to go spend Thanksgiving in the Twin Cities or see my dad for a trip or vacation, or trip is a vacation, holiday, whatever. And it would be so confusing to me that I would just sink right back to, this didn't happen, right? This person, right? It's almost like it's so hard to square two things at once, that someone can do this to you and then they can also show up and act like everything's good and everything's fine. And in time, those things started tipping, where that behavior, instead of throwing me back into denial, that behavior by him, not acting like everything's all good and nothing to see here vibes, instead of sinking me back into denial, it actually pushed me to a place of rage and anger and inability to tolerate that. I felt complicit. I felt like I was playing the same role that I played, that I no longer fit in. You know, the ways that he would try to manipulate and control me, I could see them for what they were. It was almost like there was two sides of me, acceptance and denial, and I could go between them. And as acceptance grew and denial diminished, when I was around him, I couldn't actually tolerate that, like going back to that denial place. It no longer was available to me in the same way. And I could see the two sides of him. I could see all of a sudden, like the manipulation, the betrayal, the two-facedness, the way that he was trying to control, manipulate, you know, I could see what he was doing for what it was more and more clearly. And I was more and more triggered by him as time went. I could no longer just be, and I would argue that it was hard for me to be around him my entire life to some extent, but I was no longer able to play ball like that anymore. So part of what I want to say to you is that acceptance can be a long road. It is not typically something happens and you accept it. Every single survivor that I've worked with that has gone through sexual trauma, I have yet to sit with someone who has come in and accepted everything about it just from the get. And if that's you, fuck yeah. I'm not trying to diminish anyone's experience. Everyone has their own experience, and that's okay. But what I'm saying is, I think it's very normal to have pieces that are hard to accept, and that time that you spend in denial. And I think having some compassion for that, it's not like, oh, you're incapable of finding acceptance. No, it's that these things are heavy and hard to hold. And depending on the severity, who the perpetrator is, what are all the different things around you that might be barriers to acceptance, right? For me, if we think about this, the barriers for me to accept were sky high. The barriers were my relationship with my father and my stepmother, my relationship with my siblings and my family, my access to generational wealth, my childhood home, my whole existence in some ways, not my whole existence, but a lot of my existence was tied up with this person. He's my fucking dad, right? Like, to come out with this had to push against all of that and the potential to lose all of that. And I don't think I was able to consciously hold that clearly in my head the whole time, because it was just too much. But for you, if there's things that you're struggling to accept, give yourself some grace if you can, to know that it's hard, that it's hard to wrap your mind around something that's unacceptable and that's taboo and that's fucking painful, and that's like, how did this person do that thing? How did this person do that and then act like everything's normal? How does this person do this thing and nobody saw it? How does this person do this thing and everyone thinks they're this great human, which is likely not true, but maybe sometimes how you feel. Why isn't anyone else raising a flag? Why isn't anyone else said anything? Is it only me? You know, there's a million things that feel very confusing. That's just about the perpetrator, right? But I'm going to say that if you're struggling to get to that place of moving forward, perhaps there's more that you need to do and more work that you need to do to feel grounded and feel ready to accept that truth and to feel like your life feels solid and stable, that whatever happens in accepting that and whatever changes need to happen in your life from there, that you are in a position where you feel solid and able to handle it, that you are able to weather that pain and you're strong enough and you're in that place to do that. So compassion for all parts of ourselves and all parts that have weathered this, and keep moving forward, just one step at a time. So thank you for being here. I cannot wait to see you tomorrow, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Bye.